Melvin Hinton is away this week. I am Jason Compton, your host. Melvin has offered me the freedom that if I had a good idea for the show, that I can ask him to yield the floor. And I had the idea to bring on a modern-day book editor and reviewer. I'd like to welcome Boston-based editor, reviewer, and a really multi-channel book authority, Steve Donoghue. Steve, thank you for making the time to join us this evening.
Pleasure to join you.
So for our listeners who may not follow your St. Donoghue YouTube channel, your Substack, or several of your other channels, can you tell us just a little bit about your background in books, in book commentary and coverage, sort of where that journey begins, and then we can talk about the 21st century aspects that I think really fascinate me, and I'm hoping to share more with the audience.
Well, it goes back into the prehistory of the mid-20th century.
Okay.
Where I stumbled accidentally into the world of books, into the world of writing about books, reviewing books, editing the reviews of others, and finally running a book section or the book's coverage of an arts and entertainment section. And then it just kept going from there. The books never end. So I did that forever and ever in the American Midwest. And then I took it into my head, for some reason that surpasses understanding, that it would be more honest, more salt of the earth to sell books directly to the people. So I became a bookseller, a retail bookseller, and did that for years and years and years and years. Why it didn't occur to me that I could do both, I don't know. Plenty of other people do. But I stopped for a long, long time from being in the book world, and then I got back into the book world as the editor of an online literary journal, and then right back into my old ways, doing freelance book reviewing for any place whose check wouldn't bounce, just like I did in the old days. When every town had 2 independent newspapers, right. When it was easy to do that. Towns don't have newspapers anymore, and now, but it didn't matter because I was writing for the Daily Star, for the National in Abu Dhabi, for the Wall Street Journal, for the Washington Post, for a long time for the Christian Science Monitor, for the Boston Globe, and having a blast, in addition to being an editor for a new online literary journal. The one thing that was missing, the one thing that all of my bookish friends said, all right, well, it's unlikely that you could return to the world of for-pay book reviewing, but you managed to do it somehow. But the one thing that you can't possibly return to is being a book section editor, because they don't exist anymore. And even that I have returned to. I am the book section editor for a very small print newspaper in northern Georgia.
Interesting.
Not arts and entertainment. My masthead, the top of my page says books.
Strictly books.
And I believe my circulation probably is the smallest of any newspaper in the country, but I don't think there are many people who are listed on their masthead as a books editor. And that brings us up to the present day, where I am writing. I do that, and I write book reviews for the Martha's Vineyard Gazette. I'm a book reviewer for them, and manage that Georgia paper. I have a YouTube channel and a Substack, all the usual stuff, all the stuff from the 21st century that would have been incomprehensible in the middle of the 20th century.
So that really is a fascinating combination of both, using your, I guess, hustle to find the old world opportunities. Hey, if there's a book section out there in a North Georgia paper, I'm going to find it and I'm going to make it mine. And then, to that point, yes, finding those 21st century channels. One of the things that it seems to me is very different about those, when you're writing for a newspaper, circulation and the demographics of that circulation, that's mostly the publisher's problem, right? And they mostly have the data
Yes.
to that. Whereas on YouTube, where I know that you're posting sometimes multiple times a week, you get your own demographics. With a reasonable
Right.
degree of accuracy who's engaging, how long they're engaging for, whether that pyramid is changing over time. Does that change anything about your approach to not just the subject matter, but how you sort of organize your thoughts and what you share about books when you have those two very, very different views on building and understanding an audience?
Well, not what I share with books or what I think about them. because over time, I mean, we're talking a large amount of time here that I've been doing this, you build a readership that is not venue specific. And that readership counts on you. There's no way that I could pull a critical punch, for instance, depending on the venue, because there are going to be people who are going to be reading that because my name is on it. They're not readers of that venue ordinarily. So I hew to one critical voice always. And I make a point when I take a berth. All of my old bookish friends said, well, you can make a point until the cows come home. No one's going to offer you a book section anymore. There aren't any book sections anymore. But I make a point when I take a job like that as a sort of editor for hire, that I don't want restrictions like that. If you want an editor who's going to be a buddy to the local community, then you could find someone else. I don't want to do that. I will give you a really good section, but it has to be on my terms. But when it comes to YouTube, well, I mean, you say that I can know my own demographics, but I am tech averse. So I don't know how to find my own demographics, and I wouldn't be interested in them if I could.
Okay.
What I can do on YouTube instead is build my own audience. What you do on YouTube is build your own audience. Mm-hmm. You eventually shape an audience that gets you. And that you can't really do that with a static venue, with a print venue. But on YouTube, gradually you can. If you've got somebody with an axe to grind against you, you can just quietly eliminate them from your community and keep the people who might not always agree with you, but certainly understand, get you the type of people you'd hang out with, basically. It's the kind of channel that I make. So there I've been able to sort of shape an audience. I haven't shaped their reading taste, but I at least know who I'm talking to there to a far greater degree than a newspaper or even an online literary journal. I'm an editor on an online literary journal. It runs reviews of new books. And there, with the online journal, I just scatter the new reviews out into the world because anybody can find a link. Anybody can find a URL. With the print newspaper in northern Georgia, well, if I get a new 800-page scholarly study of the Pilgrimage of Grace, I'm probably not going to run a review of that for northern Georgia. Not because I don't have scholars who read, but because that's not the demographic. They're going to want more popular stuff than that. So there is a sense of studying the audience.
Okay. So just to get a sense for what this work entails, do you have a sense for how many pages, how many books you read in let's say an average week?
Yes. Yes, I do. But it's not believable. It's not even remotely believable. It's just like when you said a little earlier that sometimes I post multiple videos a week. My viewers were saying, "Oh God, I wish he'd let us alone that much. I post multiple videos a day." It's the same thing with reading. I do nothing else. I do literally nothing else. So my numbers get freakish.
Okay. They
very much get freakish, especially compared to, like, for instance, YouTube. The people who watch me on YouTube have jobs. They have significant others. They have caterwauling infants. They have school to go to. They have all sorts of claims on their time. They manage to get in a little reading, but I do nothing else. That's all I do. So my numbers rack up pretty much. They rack up pretty high.
So no point asking what keeps you motivated to keep reading?
Oh God, no. No, I've never lost the motivation. I know people who have. I know arts and entertainment editors who occasionally cover books, but haven't read a book in 10 years. I know some professional book reviewers who are thoroughly disillusioned with books. They look at that new release that their editor has said, "I'd like 800 words on that by the end of the month," and they look on it as a curse. If they read, they're rereading old classics from 30 years ago that they love, old stuff, Robert Ludlum and whatnot, and hating the idea of that as a chore. Some of them. And I have never been like that. Never been like that. The new release lists for the major and minor publishers in the United States are an endless Christmas for me. Just, I love them endlessly. The infinite variety, never knowing what's coming. I just love it.
So before the rise of YouTube, of podcasting, one could have been a book reviewer, a book editor who went out and did a lot of public appearances, appeared at conferences or at bookstores or, held their own symposia or whatever. Was that you, or was there something about the kind of one-to-one nature of being able to do it, from your own office that unlocked that for you?
No, that was never me, because those gigs usually go to the marquee person of a marquee venue. Mm. So if you are the weekly, in the olden days when there was a daily book reviewer for the major newspapers, somebody would write every day, or somebody who maybe the wife's cousin knows somebody on the staff at the Jack Parr show, so you get a shot there, or you in the case of Bennett Cerf, you're on What's My Line or something like that, where you become publicly known for what you're doing, or for instance, like a Christopher Hitchens type figure, where he did a lot of book reviewing, but he was publicly known for the ruckus that he kicked up on a book tour. Some of us also serve who only stand and wait. I was never high profile like that, so the invitations were not there. Plus, I'm not all that telegenic. Whereas a lot of my colleagues, especially back in the 20th century, were. The wavy silver hair and the radio announcer voice, all that sort of stuff. I was content, much more content to just do 50 times the work that they did and 100 times the reading.
I'm excited that we got a Jack Parr and Bennett Cerf reference in the same sentence. That's
yes, sorry, I'm dating myself. No. I can also mention, the latest TikTok creatures.
Well, and I want to talk a little bit about the types of formatting that you do on YouTube, because I found, just in browsing your channel, there's a straightforward, like, here's iRobot, here's why I'm reading it, here's what I think about it. You've done top 10 lists, but then there are your sort of more open format live streams. And,
yes.
Unlike print, where you go in knowing I've got 700 words, 1,100, whatever it is, I've got this much, I've got to get in and get out. You ultimately are in charge. The audience can decide if they're going to, opt out or skip around or whatever, but, you're in charge of the beginning, middle, and end. So with, the range of choice available to you, all the classics, all the things that are still getting translated, all the things still being published, are you finding that there are certain types of works that you say, like, yeah, I'm going to save this for a live stream chat, I'm going to save this for a roundup that's motivated by something else that's going on in the BookTube community? Like, are you finding, or how do you find how to slot those things in all those different types of presentations?
Well, it's not so much the reading material, the books in question, it's the treatment of them. I don't do actual formal book reviews on my YouTube channel. So if I open my mail on camera because I'm a lonely old shut-in. I open my mail on camera, and when I do that, that's full of new releases. So I'll hold up a new release for the camera and, read the publicity sheet and talk a little about, if it's a new translation, I'll talk about the previous 4 translations, or if it's a new novel, I'll talk about the last 3 books by that author or the last 2 books on the subject of the novel. But I won't actually review it. The reviews are for the written word. They're for elsewhere. So I view my YouTube channel much more in the line of conversations, just free-flowing conversations with people. So the venue doesn't dictate the subject matter at all. I have nothing but scorn for YouTubers who experience what's called audience capture, where the viewership does determine what they're going to talk about. I have nothing but scorn for them. But I don't monetize my YouTube channel. I don't get anything from it except satisfaction. So I'm not in any danger of it. The people who watch my channel do so, I think, for the reason that a lot of people increasingly are watching their favorite YouTube channels, just in general, whether it's about books or anything else, which is for the personal authenticity, where the person I'm watching is not reading a script. He's not kowtowing to a sponsor. He's just talking to me. I think that those are more and more I see people yearning for that kind of authenticity on YouTube. And it's lucky for me if they are, because I can't do anything else. So the subject matter doesn't really, the venue doesn't dictate the subject matter. It dictates the treatment of the subject matter.
Okay. How about Substack, which is a platform that I don't know that we've talked about a whole lot on Radio Literature? For those that aren't familiar with it, it's a web-based, posting platform. Kind of an organized marketplace for blogs might be another way to put it. So, how do you determine what goes on there versus your other, print or hybrid, print and web-based in the case of some newspapers and so forth? How do you decide what goes to Substack?
Well, for me, it's the same stricture. I don't exactly know why. Perhaps if my subscriber count for Substack were to quintuple, I would change my mind. But right now on Substack, again, I think this is not a place for formal book reviews. So instead, on Substack, I do more informal stuff. Latest bookish thoughts, a latest reread, thoughts on a re-release, that sort of thing. As opposed to, and also my intergalactically famous year-end best and worst books of the year list, which is also on Substack, but not actual book reviews. So Substack, it's much more the bookish thoughts that I have in my head, whatever free association stuff happens to come up, as opposed to new releases. That those stay elsewhere.
And do you fundamentally still focus on new releases? Like I said, some of what I was finding on YouTube was more about older titles, but you're telling me that may not be indicative. So your current work that goes to print and web, that is mostly new release?
Well, that goes to print is new releases.
Okay.
Yeah. On YouTube, it's pretty much anything. It's just not the thing that I do with whatever I show, whether it's old or brand new, is never an actual formal book review. I'm not really sure how I would do such a thing in spoken form anyway. So if the reader wants my first impressions, my gut reactions, a few dry quips, fine, that's one thing. If they want an actual full dress book review of what I'm showing them, they're going to have to look for that in print, the written word somewhere, as opposed to on camera.
If you're joining us in progress, this is Radio Literature. Melvin Hinton is away this week. I'm Jason Compton, and we are here with Boston-based book editor and reviewer Steve Donoghue. Steve, I don't think we've talked too much about the book editing side of your work. Is that something that's kind of a going concern? The sort of rule of thumb I keep hearing is that there's only more and more books being published every year. So does that mean ripe work for an experienced book editor?
Well, I'm not a book editor.
I swear that's in your bio, Steve.
Well, I'm a book section editor and I edit the pieces that are submitted by freelancers for my section and for the print journal and for the newspaper in northern Georgia. But I don't work on actual book manuscripts from a publisher or something like that.
Okay, I think that was my misunderstanding.
No, I am an editor, but in the older fashioned sense of the term, where I'm editing copy as it's coming in.
Gotcha. So you talked a little bit about the sort of silver-haired, distinguished book editors of the past. That demographic, I would imagine, would be changing. Print and print/web have changed quite a bit. Do your peers now have any sort of impact on the work you did versus who you were sort of looking at coming up years ago? Who sort of defined book reviewing then versus who's coming up behind you now?
Well, I wouldn't know where to look for people who are coming up behind me now. Venues are dropping like flies. Newspapers are being ordered to drop their book section, their books coverage. And as you might have seen in the Atlantic just recently, nobody reads anymore. America's having a 4-alarm fire literacy crisis. So I don't know. I know a lot of people who write book reviews now, either on an uneven freelance basis for journals like the Atlantic or Harper's or whatnot, or on a regular basis for the few newspapers that still do it. But up and coming people, I know of almost nobody who's even interested in doing such a thing. The actual formal structure of sentences, paragraphs, and through lines, they'd rather go to TikTok and do whatever they do on TikTok. I have not yet seen an actual book review on TikTok.
You'd have to cram it in.
I don't know if my profession might not be dying. I mean, people have been saying that my profession is dying as long as it's been around. Addison and Steele, Dr. Johnson were saying that book reviewing as a profession was dying. But even so, now it might be true.
Well, I'm going to throw... Go ahead.
Well, a pink-haired 17-year-old telling you that what vibes the new release gave you is not a book review. They call themselves book reviewers, and they get free copies from publishers because they have 1 million watchers. But it's not a book review. And there's precious little elsewhere, unless you go to places like Substack, which is where everybody goes now, as just a place to publish long and short form cogent work.
But for you, that's not, at least for the type of writing you do, that's not your preferred medium for publishing book reviews.
Well, no, not at the moment. If like I said, I have a readership, and they expect to see me in a venue that they can, get on their doorstep or whatnot. If all of that readership were to migrate to Substack, I'm not at all good at promoting myself or where I am or where to find my stuff. But if all of that readership migrated there, well, then I probably would move book reviews to there, or at least some book reviews to there. I could easily spread my book reviews over everywhere because I read a lot. And a large percentage of what I read is new releases.
So you talked a little bit about what you didn't like to see from some other YouTube book commentators or booktubers, but can you share a little bit about what are some of the good things out there that you've seen? Because it wasn't until fairly recently that I was aware that there was such a large booktube community. So what are some of the things that intrigue you, whether or not you're a regular watcher?
Oh my, the positives are endless, just endless. You've got all these ordinary people, all walks of life, all types of interest in reading, all types of intensity in reading. And somehow in this little area of YouTube, we have found an area, a community that is completely judgment free and that only wants to know what is revving your engine right now, or what is bothering you right now and why. Not in critical terms, and not the latest thing, and not the deepest thing. Not necessarily. Just, I'm tuning into your channel for you, and because I'm doing that, I want to know what you're reading, whatever it is, whether I have any interest in it or not. God, I've lost track of how many people have said to me, I watch your videos all the time, even though you almost never mention books that I want to read. And I feel the same way towards other booktubers that I watch, that I know perfectly well are reading, I don't even know, The Sword of Everbright, book number 17, something like that, epic fantasy series or cozy mysteries or whatever. I have no interest in reading those things at all, but I watch their channels because there's a magic to watching readers just unvarnishedly talk about their reading experience. Before this experiment, before this thing that YouTube is doing, where would I have got that? If I could have gone to, literary launches or even newspaper rooms and talked to other people in the book world. But in order to get the kind of thing I'm talking about, I would have had to go to a really hopping in-person book club of some kind, connected to a library or something like that. Whereas this is all day long, every day. It's just wonderful.
Excellent. And we can see Steve on camera here. He's got a very varied bookshelf behind him. Are you 100% print books all the time? There have been a lot of options that have come up in the decades, e-ink readers, tablets, phones, audiobooks, or are you strictly print? No. I'm doing this show right now in the pretentious word would be my study, my little closet, my little cabinet, my little book room. These shelves are full of some of my favorite books, but the huge majority of the reading that I do is e-reading. Okay.
Just
handheld
little Kindle.
Okay.
The positives are just innumerable. I mean, it has its own light. It's lightweight. It's not going to flop out of my hand. It keeps my page for me. For book reviewing, it's absolutely invaluable. You get to page 350, you realize all of a sudden, oh wait, Aunt Lulu turns out to be a pivotal character. Okay, well, when did we first meet her? You're such a bad author that I didn't realize when we were meeting her. She blurred with all your other bad characters. Well, if I have a print galley of that novel, that's going to mean half an hour of turning pages. Whereas I could just ask an e-reader, where does Aunt Lulu first appear? 2 seconds, I've got it.
Yeah.
If I get to page 230 and realize that the author is an imbecile and likes 3 adjectives, I can ask the e-reader to tell me how many times those adjectives crop up so that I can really hone my insult in the review. It's invaluable. Plus, with my e-reader, I can chuck into my shoulder bag 11,000 books.
Very cool.
Any moment, at any time. If I'm reading a new release, publishers send me, PDFs of new releases in addition to the print galleys. If I'm reading a new release and I get to the end of it and I think, as I sometimes do, that I wish the author had chosen any other profession, and I really need a palette cleanser, well, I've got 11,000 palette cleansers to choose from right there on the device without moving, not going anywhere. And you can just shift right over on the same device.
So prolific reviewers do tend to end up on a lot of, publicity distribution lists. Is there one thing you could point to as like kind of the most unusual, why did they think to send this to me text that you've ever received? Or maybe a product that wasn't a book that still showed up?
Well, there have, of course, been innumerable products that weren't books. Sometimes. If you're on the list for the full publicity gimmick package for a new book, then you will get anything. I've tried to stress to publishers over the years, all I want is the book. I don't want the basket of truffles. I don't want anything like that. But every once in a while, one gets through. Like, for instance, the galley copy of Andy Weir's book, The Martian, came with a potato.
Okay.
Came with a cellophane wrapped potato, an actual potato, because he grows a potato on Mars. The character does.
USPS was okay with that, huh?
I guess. You'd be amazed. I wouldn't think that the U.S. Postal Service would be okay with that.
I guess they used to let you mail live chickens, or maybe they still do. I know it has been a thing. Well, speaking of things that have been a thing, we have been speaking with Steve Donoghue, book reviewer. Steve, best place to find you, would that be just youtube.com/@St. Donoghue? Is that, and Donoghue?
Yes. Yeah. Although, keep in mind, you can watch the channel, but kindly don't subscribe. Don't like the videos. Don't share them with your friends. And especially don't hit the bell for notifications. Especially don't do that.
Steve very carefully following the letter of the law on those promotional items. I have been Jason Compton. Daniel MacArthur has been in the engineering booth for us. And we all thank you for listening to tonight's episode of Radio Literature.